Welcome to Slate School and our conversation titled How to Begin Well, Thoughts for the Start of a School Year. We have phenomenal panelists tonight, and we are looking forward to all of the insight that they'll be sharing with us today. Slate School is committed to excellence in education, and we are delighted to present the Education Idea Lab, which is a unique virtual series that is free and open to the public. This thought-leading event convenes leaders, change makers, and participants from all sectors of education and innovation. So thank you for joining us. We are thrilled to have all of you with us here today. My name is Julie Mountcastle, and I'm head of school at Slate School. I'll briefly introduce you to Slate School, and then we'll begin hearing from our expert panelists. So Slate School is an independent 501c3 nonprofit K-12 school where education is focused on cultivating creativity, fostering ingenuity, and inspiring a deep passion for lifelong learning. At Slate School, we formed a community that is constantly striving to improve practice, to create meaningful educational experiences for learners of all ages, and to change the landscape in education. Slate School convenes experts for important, authentic conversations about education, and these online dialogues, just like today's, are free and open to the public. So we're so delighted to have all of you with us today. Our panelists are Alin, Bennett, Orly, Friedman, Miguel, Gonzalez, Wendy, Ostroff, and Denise Pope. So I'd love to ask each of our panelists to just briefly introduce themselves and maybe talk a little bit about your particular lens for the beginnings of school years, and then we'll move into our panel conversation. I'll also, throughout the panel, invite you, the audience, to submit questions as comments on Facebook, and we will address as many of them as possible. So we'll begin. I'm thrilled you're here, Alin. Wonderful to see you. And we'll get started with you. Welcome, Alin.
Hi. Good afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you are in the world. To everyone, my name is...
Here on the East Coast, because that's where I am too. Everybody else is a ways away.
And so my name is Alin Bennett. I'm Vice President of Practice and Field Advancement for Education Reimagined. And we're a national organization looking to elevate and advance learner-centered environments across the country. And this is actually my first school year out of a school. So this was a new experience for me. So for the past 15 years, whether I was an advisor, or a head lead teacher, or an administrator, I've been setting up the beginning of school years for the past 15 years. So it's a little sad and a little different too. But for me, the beginning of the school year has always been the most important, time of the year. We always broke it down in, the ways of the first 3 days, first 3 weeks, first 3 months. That's the way that we sort of always approached the beginning of the school year. So it was always a time that excited me, even when I was a young kid. I remember the first few days of school. It was always great times for me. So beginnings are really great for the school year.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. That's great. Next, I'd introduce you to Orly Friedman. Hi, Orly.
Hi. Thanks for having me, Julie.
It's our pleasure. Thanks for coming.
So I am the founder and head of school of Redbridge, which is a K-8 school located in the Dogpatch neighborhood of San Francisco. And we serve an economically diverse student population of K through 3 right now, although we don't actually group students by grade level. We group them by autonomy level, which is based on a set of work habits like time management, focus, initiative. And we do that because our school is designed to teach students to take ownership of their learning and develop a sense of agency over their learning and lives. And autonomy levels is just one way that we do that. Redbridge is in its second year of operation right now. We're still quite small with 21 students, but growing. And at the start of this year and at the start of last year, our focus has really been on how do we want students to feel. So as a team, before the start of the school year, we sit down and we just talk about how do we want students to feel leaving their first day of school and at the end of the first week. And then we plan everything out minute by minute. just for that first week. And then we do an audit and we say, okay, we said this is how we want kids to feel going home. Is everything that we planned going to lead to that? Because we know that when their parents ask them what they did, they may or may not remember, but they will remember how they felt at the end of the day. And so that's key for us as we start off the school year.
Great. Great. Orly, what an interesting time to have started a school.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Wow.
Launching right into a pandemic.
Yeah. I bet you have some interesting observations about that. Maybe we'll get to that today. That would be great. And next, I just welcome Miguel Gonzalez. Welcome, Miguel.
Thanks, Julie. A pleasure to be here. I'm Miguel Gonzalez. I'm the director of Embark Education, which is a micro school embedded in 2 small businesses, a coffee shop and a bike shop here in Denver, Colorado. We have 6th through 8th grade here at Embark, and I apologize, actually, they're working hard in the bike shop right now behind me, so you might hear some banging. I'm not sure exactly what repair they're doing, but definitely appreciate it. You can't help but chuckle. Yeah, and Embark's beginning, when we think about beginnings, we really, first and foremost, like center upon our students. And the way that we talked about it specifically this year was, how do we build the relationships between our learners and their learning? And if we center first the learner and the learning, and then everything else that we think of in between is movable, then we're going to be making different decisions. If we can understand that time, space, and us as adults are things that move, but the learner and the learning are the 2 most important pieces, then we would be starting well. That'd be a beginning in which might be like something else we've never done before. And it was a brand new approach for us this year, with really taking on that philosophy. Although it's always been underneath the work that we've done, we'd never really named it in that way. And so it was really powerful as we spend the first part of our year just really focusing on the human in front of us, not the humans, plural. Embark is a school that is made up of individuals, and really getting to know each and every one of them, because that will change the books, the curriculum, the experiences that we have. The moment that you get to know them, you recognize that anything you had planned before doesn't necessarily make sense. And so that's how we began our year.
Wow. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I'm glad you're here. And next, say hello to Wendy Ostroff. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, Julie. Thanks, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. I'm Wendy Ostroff. I'm a professor at Sonoma State University in the Hutchins School of Liberal Studies. I'm a cognitive and developmental psychologist by training. And in the Hutchins School, we teach future teachers, but we teach them in a very unusual way. It's a non-hierarchical school. So we create knowledge together. We have no experts in the room. We teach things that are outside of our areas of expertise very deliberately, and to create a learning community and to kind of come up with what we want together as a group. So the beginning of school, first off, this is not what these students are used to. They think it's a trick. They think, where's the trap here, and what do you want me to know, and how do I please you, and how do I please my parents? So it takes some undoing for us at the beginning when we form a learning community. It's about trusting each other, and I really like my students to be able to reinvent themselves, to not be typecast by who they have been as a learner in the past. So I guess the best beginnings are really trusting each other and getting that intellectual intimacy that happens when we kind of let down a little. I try to use a lot of silliness and laughter to break down some of the barriers with my students. And I really try to let them own the space and really try to let them define, make up some guidelines of how they want to run this course, and what they want to get out of it. And I think it takes several weeks for us to really kind of connect and bond as individuals and as a group together. And what our group is going to do just as Miguel was saying, we don't know. We don't know what's going to work for our group. Sometimes the students really want kind of a high structure setting, and sometimes they want a real free form, more improv setting. So we feel it out and get to know each other for a little bit first and make some goals together. It's exciting though.
Awesome. Awesome. And last but not least, Denise Pope. Hi, Denise.
Hi, I'm thrilled to be here. This is my first time as part of the panel, so I'm excited to be here. I'm a senior lecturer at the Graduate School of Education at Stanford University and co-founder of a nonprofit called Challenge Success. And Challenge Success, we are really challenging that very narrow notion of success, academic success, success in life. But there's one path that everybody needs to take. You got to get the grades and the test scores to get into college and get a job and make a ton of money, right? And that's how you're happy. We're really challenging that notion for every student and transforming the student experience. So we're about student health and well-being and real engagement with learning, which all of you, is very clear, are about. And I think in terms of beginning, so two things. One, I have a class starting in 2 weeks. Stanford starts a little bit later than some of you. But I just met with my TAs today, and we will have a class of 30 to 35 students, and it's a 10-week quarter. It moves really quickly. So I don't have a bunch of time to get to know students, but I need to get to know them really well, build trust, build up the relationships, because they do, they break into groups and do a major project over the 10 weeks. So I do what's called a cocktail party without cocktails. They're kind of bummed about that, but we spend a lot of time getting to know one another and talking about what we're watching or reading or what makes us laugh, who we are, what our goals are, what we're interested in. And we spend almost 2 weeks getting to know each other before we launch into this project that's going to be a major project due at the end of 10 weeks. So it's absolutely important. And the schools that we work with in Challenge Success, we have whole workshops that we do professional development on creating belonging in the classroom and creating trust and being human. So it's very much echoing all of the themes that you've all said today.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to get started. So I'm just gonna launch into a question, but I'll say to all of you just one more time, please talk to each other. I don't need to be the question asker, because I'm really here to learn from you. And I think that a conversation is the best way to do it. So I'll begin, but feel free to chime in. I guess one of the themes that I hear from all of you is just this need for the flexibility to see each learner absolutely individually and to work with each learner in the way that is most ideal for them, no matter what the environment. And so I'm just wondering, what do you think might be some valuable lessons that we can engage in our professional learning communities to help us to be flexible in this way? And then I just add an addendum to that. How can we help our students to embrace that flexibility? Who wants to have a go at it?
I can jump in.
Thanks, Miguel.
Yeah. One of the things, like, I really appreciated the practice of starting at the adult level, because although the relationship needs to happen between youth and adults and youth, the adults are critical in it, actually, because there's the most unlearning to be done there first. And so one of the practices that we've really engaged in is getting to know ourselves, our identities, and being vulnerable with our relationship with ourselves. Because being able to be authentic with students, which is critical in a learner-centered environment, we must first know ourselves and be comfortable with who we are. And so one of the ways that we've practiced doing that is, actually, I laugh because I'm so used to it, but like, as professionals, we all have our introductions. You heard mine. I've said it 1,000 times. And what we've done as a team is differentiate between our professional introductions and our personal introductions by going through a practice of like asking each other, like, who are you? And all of us, by nature of probably being passionate about what we do, we begin there. But then if you challenge yourself to say, like, thank you, I hear that, but who are you? It starts to peel back the layer of the onion into like personal identity, family identity, and all of the other identities. And as you continue to progress through that, you cannot help but to enter spaces that you don't normally put out into the world in relationship-based spaces. And once we do that as a team, we're able to kind of take some of those pieces and share those, like begin the relationship by first sharing about who we are in ways that actually we would not necessarily have first thought of with our normal professional spaces.
That's incredible. How many individuals are engaged in this practice?
Oh yeah, so at Embark, we've done it with, so Embark is a unique structure. So I have an education team that is made up of 3 educators who are like the teachers, although we call them educators. We have our entire bike shop team, who is bike shop mechanics and our shop manager, our barista team and our coffee shop manager. And so in total, we have around 15 to 20 people who are all adults circling these students' worlds. And we all engage in it together. And that path of like really peeling back the layers of like, I'm a bike shop mechanic and have just as much to offer as a 20-year veteran teacher is incredibly powerful. And the relationships that form beyond that are unbelievable. So yeah.
Awesome. Anybody else have a practice similar to that, or now wants to adopt that practice immediately? I have to ask. Oh, go ahead. Please go ahead, Denise.
I was just going to say, I'm coming at it from a slightly different way. If you look sort of at the academic piece of this, you know, sort of looking at the history of education in the past, you know, this was one of the things that John Dewey years ago would fight against, that people didn't understand that this is not planless improvisation. And I think when you hear someone like Miguel talk about that, to me, I get very excited. I think, yes, this is exactly what we need. And I can see sort of people who don't understand that, who really kind of have what school should be in their head, really need to understand that it's not planless improvisation, to use Dewey's words. And that, so the frame that I take in these instances is really sort of a backwards design, enduring understanding concept, where you say, we're not going in there and like anything goes, and we're just going to let the kids decide. And, you know, it's much more, and I think that's a real misconception. It's much more about who decides what gets taught and what is learned. And there's a power structure there. And how do we do this as a unit, as a community, deciding really important questions? You know, I teach a curriculum class, and it's the how, what, and why, right? It's like, what is the purpose of education? What is important to know? How do we get there? And if you go in with those really in the background and backwards plan, this is what we want to come out of this. Not topics, not content, not even specific skills. I think it will help people understand the bigger picture and help them coalesce around this. Does that make sense?
Totally.
That resonates with me a lot, because our school is all about building student agency, and agency is such a buzzword that it means something totally different to a lot of people. And so when we talk about it with prospective parents, they often are concerned that what agency means is kids doing whatever they want and not having a structure to the school day or the school experience. But we actually have a very specific definition of agency, which is the ability to set meaningful goals and have the will and skill to achieve them. And so if we are giving students agency in that way of teaching them how to set goals for themselves and how to build the will and skill to meet the goals that they have, then we have to provide a really structured experience. And that's what we're doing from day one, teaching them and scaffolding this idea of goal setting, from starting with like shared whole school or whole group goals and moving slowly as students are able to towards more individual goals. And building off of what Miguel said, this system has to start with the adults. So just like we're teaching students how to set goals for themselves and supporting them through weekly one-on-ones with a learning guide, we also do the same thing with the adults in our space. So every educator has a one-on-one where they're talking about their goals for themselves as educators and even beyond.
Beautiful.
I think it's really fascinating that we need both, right? We need structure, and then we need to break open the structure sometimes, because I feel that the students I'm seeing have been so indoctrinated into structure and goals and hierarchy that I need to, shake that Etch-a-Sketch a little bit and do a little bit of what do we say not to do. I need to do a little bit of throwing it out the window, because otherwise they have such a hard time getting into what they're passionate about and who they really are. And they're playing a role because they've been taught so much what role to play. And so there's a little, and I don't want to be a contrarian, but there's a little busting out that I have to do first before I can get them to do the meaningful goal setting and the meaningful agency, because they don't even know in some cases where their heart or their passion lies. It's been squeezed so much for many, many, many years. And my students are about to become teachers with young children. And I feel like that, so the play, like the grown-up play, saying the grown-ups need to do it, I feel like we need to play and play and play first, because we already know how to do hierarchy and structure, and we'll get that we'll get, but the play is so important. Or not being attached. I feel like intellectual play is a good one, because you can try on an idea that's not your idea and no one's going to hold you to it. Like let's just not be in charge, or let's just not be the boss, or let's let them a little bit do whatever they want, and just to see what happens. And then and then you find out where their passion is. So that I feel sometimes that pendulum, we need to get a little revolutionary and poke it a little, because otherwise there's so much hierarchy and they're really suffocating sometimes.
What does Monica Martinez call it? I think she said in her book Deeper Learning, she talks about disorientation. We need some practices that remind our students that this is not school as your parents imagined it necessarily. We're doing something different here. We have a different way, and it's a really great way, but it's going to require you to actually think deeply about who you are and what you want, and we'll help you from there.
And Wendy, I completely agree with you. In fact, Dewey would agree with you, right? I mean, he's after disequilibrium, which is what sort of shakes you up and allows you to set a goal and then get back to equilibrium, only to have that be a really pleasurable experience and want to do it all again. My hope is that by the time kids that we work with in preschool and elementary school, middle school and high school get to you, that they will have done this so much that you won't have as much shaking of the Etch-a-Sketch to do, because they'll know that this is just what school is. This is how it should always be. That would be sort of my goal.
Awesome. So I think I hear sort of a general river of agreement about this kind of child-centered or learner-centered education. And I'm just going to say, sadly, I ask this question of every single panel. If we believe that this learner-centered education is what we hope is the best way, is what we think is the best way to help prepare learners to be prepared for a brand new world, the world that we're we're in. And it's the most equitable innately, and it's personal, and it gets kids where they need to be. If we agree on that, why are we still struggling to make this more universal? Please have the answer.
It's paradigmatic. I think that's sort of the bottom line of it. We have industrialized all of our major institutions. Healthcare is industrialized. Agriculture is industrialized. Everything we do is built on efficiency and sort of timeliness. And and the dangerous thing is that never works with human beings. Like, we are not products, and we are not output. So they will always come in place, and we also just have to acknowledge the initial design of the modern education system in this country was designed to sort, sift, and exclude those who could not access information. So was it intentionally meant to exclude those? Like, that was its basis in design. So in essence, its creation was to create an equity across systems, because the founders thought it was, some people could do it, some people could not. And it was steeped in, eugenics and colonialism and other terrible worldviews and mindsets. So it lies in the initial creation of the system. And it's like, despite, the efforts of so many dedicated individuals over the past, century, 120 years, you're fighting against its natural instinct. The system's natural instinct is to sort and system. And so what it really needs is just a completely transformed system with bringing none of that baggage with it when you're transforming these systems.
Yeah. What can we say to people who are not in a situation like some of us who are very fortunate to be in a school that we're designing our own curriculum and actually charting our own course? What do we say to people who are starting right now, starting their year, and they would like to start doing more of this? They would like to start implementing more of these kinds of ideas toward making a real difference in their school. What can we offer them? What can we offer them to help them get started?
I think we just have to trust in this process. If we know, as a developmentalist, if we know that development happens in fits and starts, so it may not look so good in the short term, but if we trust this process, then we see that development is very nonlinear. And so I remember my pediatrician telling me when my son was a baby and he wouldn't eat anything, and I was freaking out. And I remember her telling me, don't look at it in the day, what he ate, just look at it in the week, what he ate. And I think, if he does okay over a week, we're okay. And I think about that with teaching. I feel like but it's a bigger scale. Don't look at it in the week, look at it in in the semester or the season, and say, because things like reading and things very big developmental milestones they're very messy when you get minute. But they're very nonlinear and dynamic. And so all of a sudden they pop in, right? All of a sudden a child that's not reading is all of a sudden reading. You're like, what? How did that happen? But zooming out in a way and having that trust can be really powerful. I feel like telling the parents and telling the teachers is like, trust in that process. You don't have to have a measurement every single hour, every day, but look over big time.
It's so interesting, I think, as educators and parents, for any of you who are in that role. I was in that role. I'm in that role. Educator and parent. We know so much about, what's the developmental circle for the 5-year-old? Where is the average 7-year-old? and you're spending time with your child in an incredibly sort of organic, authentic way, but you have all of this information. And I think it can be really hard to kind of separate that out in your parenting, but nobody does better when they're feeling bad. And so if you're putting more on your child than your child is ready for, they're never going to be doing the things that you think you want them to be able to do.
Yeah.
Denise, go ahead.
Well,
Chime
I was
in.
just going to say, I think so many of the schools represented here are really special, but most educators are in pretty traditional schools. And when we work with them, we say, you still have control. You can still be learner-centered. You wiggle in the way within the room that you have. So, we have a mantra, student voice, choice, revision, and redemption. And as a way to just center the students, right, that you have to give tests because everyone in the department gives tests, or you have to follow this curriculum, but the how you do it can be incredibly relational. It can be very much about the student, give the student voice, give them even baby choices, and allow for revision and redemption along the way. And so within a system, there is wiggle room, and we teach people how to wiggle. And sometimes we teach them how to really wiggle and push against that system. And sometimes we teach them just, start small, start giving choice in your homework assignments. Literally, that's probably the smallest thing you can do. Is there's 16 math problems. Pick 4 that you know how to do and show what you know. That's like the babyest thing you can do, but you still have power in your own classroom.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Denise, and would say like similar to that, I think like where people have power is in their own belief, right? Like everything Denise said, I totally echo that, but that's like a belief system. Why are you doing that? And you can control your paradigm and orientation to youth, to your students, right? To your learners. It's like, it must start there. And from there, like grows pedagogy, grows practice, grows systems. But it must start again, first with that individual's belief and trust in youth, in their inherent abilities to walk through this world, and their inherent brilliance. And once we can unlock that in an adult level, I think everything else flourishes. And so like, to me, that's where it begins. And that would be like my advice as far as like look at a student and actually like question yourself, like how are you approaching that orientation to them?
Yeah, and I just would add to that trust aspect. If you can bring authentic trust, kids are not trusted in our society, and at any age, we have sort of lost our trust in them to have agency, largely as a society. So if you can authentically show that trust to kids, they will pick up on that immediately. So if that's that small step, they're like, oh, this guy trusts me and he loves me. That alone can shift it, even if you have to deliver a test every week and put your chairs in row.
Convincing parents of that, I think, that it doesn't matter how much a parent wants something for their child. If the child's going to make a decision about whether they want that outcome or goal or whatnot for themselves. And you can spend hours trying to make a child want something, but when they decide it for themselves, they can make up for any amount of lost time getting there. So that's something that we keep in mind and try to reiterate to parents as much as possible.
I think you perfect entree for this idea of lost time. I think it's been a real red herring, the conversation right now about all of the time that was lost to COVID. It's not that children weren't learning during that time. They just weren't learning what we were telling them they should be learning. And I just want to say that Wendy's written an article that just came out today that has, I think a lot of wisdom about giving kids time, unstructured time. Maybe you could speak to that a little bit, Wendy.
Yeah, I guess the prevailing view, and to speak to what Alin said about the the mechanistic view and the industrialization of what's happened is this idea that kind of faster is better or efficient, or we even speak of smarter. He's so smart, he's already talking, he's already reading. And this idea that faster is better, but actually the research really doesn't show that faster is better. And in fact, a lot of the things we want kids to develop for school, things like the executive functions, planning and decision-making and agency and self-regulation, those things you have to practice, but we're not really giving kids an opportunity to practice those things because they're so scheduled up that they don't have free time on the weekends. They don't have free time on the summer. They never have a day to just figure out what they want to do to make those kinds of plans and decisions. Kids are more scheduled up now than ever, and parents feel a real burden to make those great plans because they feel that the kids will be left behind, that they won't develop what they need. And I think and I feel for parents, and I'm a parent too. And so we're in this weird double bind where we have to be uncomfortable a little bit and let kids figure things out and let them get bored and let them transcend that. And actually those great skills come out of that suspension of time and maybe even that discomfort, but that practice that they need to get.
And I'll add to that. So we have a little mnemonic aid at Challenge Success when we talk to parents, and it's called PDF. It doesn't stand for portable document format, but if you look at the protective factors for children, it stands for playtime, downtime, and family time. And that has to happen in school, that has to happen outside of school. They need time for free, unstructured, child-led, creative play every day. They need downtime, including adequate sleep, which our teens, in our study, we survey 200,000 teens, and they're not even getting close to what they need, right, in terms of sleep. But downtime, real downtime is where you think about the big pictures of life and who you want to be. And you tinker on the piano because you can, not because you have to practice for a piano recital, right? And that's where you get this real engagement. So you have playtime, you have downtime, and then you have family time. And that's one of the things that really happened during COVID is more people did get to spend time together. There's also a huge population that didn't get to spend time together because everybody was trying to work multiple jobs and trying to put food on the table and keeping it together. And but we know that these are protective factors for kids, that all kids, and I would say probably all human beings, need playtime, downtime, and family time every day. And so we talk with schools about where's your PDF? Where's your PDF as an individual teacher in your classroom? Where's your PDF in the school day? Where's your PDF at home outside the school day? So hopefully, I hope that mnemonic aid helps people. Feel free to use it.
Awesome. That's great. Well, here we are now. We're now entering a school year with, I think, what we can all agree is a great deal of uncertainty again. And I'm just wondering if there are some ways for us to begin right at the start of this year, helping kids and helping each other to sort of build the ability to see through this uncertainty, to sort of be ready for whatever comes our way, and I don't know, to have a sort of a semblance of stability as we kind of navigate. Does anybody have any thoughts about ways to embed that?
I would say that when students are used to taking control of their learning and know how to self-direct even for part of the day, that allows them to be so much more flexible in terms of whether school's happening at home or in a school building. If you're not reliant on a teacher standing over you to get your work done or tell you what to do next, then you can really work from anywhere and use all of the tools at your disposal. So the more that we teach students and build those skills of owning their learning, then the more prepared they are for these disruptions that are almost certain to become more frequent.
I'm having a hard time relating to the question, mainly because of the learners that I've always served in the Providence and the Boston area. their lives were full of disruptions, major disruptions in their lives. They're just resilient, brilliant, wondrous young people. So I would take it the same way I would approach any disruption in their lives. Authentically, I'll know that you're there for them. Process all of this this uncertainty publicly and sort of authentically with the kids, and let them come to their own discovery of how to deal with it. Of course, with your support.
It's interesting, Alin. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Don't want to elevate it. This disruption. There's lots of disruptions in our kids' lives, and they're just brilliantly handling it. So that's sort of the lens I take. I've always taken with the pandemic since the start.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, and I think that that's something that there are whole populations of people that need to learn, right? So I mean, that's who we need to listen to. Kids who have experience with this. They have a lot to teach us, right? Kids who have been, dealing with difficulty and disruption and inequity. They have a lot to teach these, the rest of the population. So that's what we want to illuminate.
I think there's also something to be said for stability or ritual and routine that helps ground people through these times too. So, this is why ritual is invented, like in religion and whatnot too. It makes you feel like, okay, there's a home base, there's something I understand and I know and can count on and trust. So yes, it's human beings, like Alin was saying. And if we know that every Monday morning we're going to come in and do X or whatever, and again, let the students decide this. It doesn't have to be adult, top down, but there is something very comforting in time of stress and trauma about ritual and safety and knowing what is going to happen next. What little piece can I control when everything around me is out of control?
Yep. Is there a way for us to sort of, get the jump on identifying kids that are really struggling in these times? How can we be better at knowing who's experiencing the trauma right now? Because I think, sometimes we're communicating via Zoom, sometimes we're in person, sometimes kids are homesick and have no way to be communicating in a way that's really, easy to bridge. Anybody have any thoughts about how we can really reach across the screen and lift kids up?
I saw a couple of practices through the pandemic. One was the Met School in Providence, Rhode Island, and the other one was Norris Academy in Wisconsin. And they repurposed is not the right word. Staff rededicated themselves to different work throughout the pandemic. Every child in those environments, and one is a smaller, Norris is a smaller, but the Met School in Providence is 800-900 kids. Every single person had a touch point with an adult one-on-one every single day of the pandemic. And even if it was 15 seconds, it was just, hey, how's it going today? You ready to rock? Whatever that touch point was. I think it just shows a level of, it shows a level of care that the kids really recognize, and they acknowledge and they welcome all that work from the adults that are supporting them. So that's one really great practice I saw throughout the pandemic.
Awesome.
Oh, go ahead, Miguel. We just surveyed kids, and less than 40% had a daily check-in with an adult during the pandemic. So that it's not a usual thing, and it's huge. Go ahead, Miguel.
Yeah, I was just gonna really echo it, and say that it's like this. It's actually a question that reframes like the purpose of education. Where it's like, are you worried about the learning, or are you worried like the schooling, or are you worried about the human? Yeah. And once you like reprioritize that and repurpose your resources, and that was the fantastic example of that. Like that's what I think those grounding points for the uncertainty are.
And also, I guess we need to remember, especially if we're working with younger children, that their perspective may be so different than what we think. And there may be a lot of fear involved or what they're hearing, and they may be hearing piecemeal kinds of things. I have a student teacher who recently had a conversation with two, I think they were fifth graders, and they started talking about climate change, and these young children were just saying that, the world won't be here. By the time we're your age, the earth will be gone and we won't have any food and we won't have any water. So like, this is it, we're all going to die. And she was really stunned to feel that the information they were receiving, that the climate is in a dire situation was apocalyptic information, that they actually thought this is it. And she felt that the anxiety coming from these kids as they're living every day, as they think, that they won't be here to live a full life, was just, needing to have some talking and to deal with that they were in kind of a trauma state as things were happening around them. So we may not even realize how the information is coming in with our students. And I've even found that with my students in higher ed that we'll try to look at some data and look at what the numbers are for COVID and the safety precautions, because there's a big range of responses and whether students feel safe in their situation.
Absolutely. I think even in our school, we have such a variety of ways families are dealing with it. There are some families whose children know almost nothing about it, very little information, the least necessary, they would say. And then there are other children that know everything about it and have experienced, traumatic loss. And so, our population of 42 students, I mean, it's much easier to have, FaceTime with every child. But, when Alin's talking about a district of 800 kids, I mean, I think that's, a really remarkable reach. When I was thinking about some of the questions for this group, one of the questions was, what are some things that have come out of the pandemic that should be continued, that are, incredibly innovative? And of everything that I've heard of, I think, sadly, the most innovative is the idea that every single child in every single school should have at least 15 seconds of one-on-one FaceTime with someone who they trust, who can help facilitate their learning journey. So, how do we help that continue across the board, even when people think it's not COVID or it's not so dire? It is dire.
It was interesting. Education Reimagined worked with SERPI and NGLC on a project called What Made Them So Prepared, where they studied how folks adapted and were able to pivot powerfully during the pandemic. And what we have found after interviewing dozens and dozens of school, the more advanced you were and learner-centered, the less your practices changed during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
It was in the last article we read was about Norris Academy, Lindsay Unified School District, and High School for Recording Arts in Minneapolis. And it was business as usual. That's the title of the article. It was business as usual for them. I mean, it was just how they delivered the platform of interaction was different. It was across screen. So practices didn't change, beliefs didn't change. It was just the mode of communicating was the only thing that changed. So it's like,
I think that's right. And, we surveyed students to ask that question, Julie. So we said, what came out of the pandemic that you would like to see continue? And we have, 60,000 middle school and high school students answer these questions, which is a big group. And very clearly, this focus on relationships and social emotional learning, they didn't say it that way, right? But that was the theme. And flexibility. This idea, like, if I have to go work at the gas station tonight for 5 hours, the fact that I can turn in my project or whatever a day late or 2 days late and not get penalized was huge. It goes to Miguel, like, you're teaching the student, look at the kid in front of you. What makes sense? Deadlines don't make sense. Failing a kid who failed a test doesn't make sense. These things don't make sense when you put the student at the center, and the students absolutely picked up on this. So this sort of asynchronous flexibility, much more understanding what is due, when is due, and why you're doing it. Teachers had to get much more specific about that with online schooling. But number one, relationships. The fact that this adult cares about me. They started asking about us. It was very clear that we felt cared for. That's what they want to see continue.
I also think, when you're looking at the student face to face, you're also saying, you're working at the gas station, and that's a fantastic thing, actually, and you're learning a whole host of things while you're engaged in this practice that apply to all sorts of things all across the world of work and understanding the world. And I think we undervalue those experiences, and when we do that, we miss a whole host of great learning that we could be receiving from that child as humans. And I think that's something that's really unique about Miguel's work, because Miguel has like the work happening. It's not all performance. It's not we're getting the bikes ready for a race. It's not we're serving the coffee to be the very best coffee in the world. You're working. It's the act of doing the thing. And I think that has a lot greater goodness than we give it credit. I'd actually like to ask the question of Miguel, how do you get that started? How did you develop those relationships, or were they embedded in your project from the very start? Because working side by side with someone is, I think, a profound way to learn.
Yeah, it was definitely embedded from the beginning, right? So our two businesses are built from the ground up as learning spaces. They are fully functioning businesses with their own bike shop and barista teams that function with or without our students. But every single person that is hired into those shops comes knowing that this is what they're signing up for, that this is a revolutionary experience in which, like, the mission of the coffee shop is, oh my gosh, now I'm gonna say that, I'm gonna mess it up. It's to revolutionize the intersection of coffee, students, or learning in the community. It's pretty close to it if it's not perfect. And everybody
It's overrated.
is on board with that. And so when you are, again, bringing together people who just really believe in the power of youth, and doing it from actually people who are not trained. We're trained as educators, oftentimes, at least through my type of teacher preparation program, I was trained in a way to interact with youth. And these people don't have that. So they're coming with this really pure beginner's mindset of their relationships. And so we have to learn. I learn every day from how they're interacting with their youth in that way. And so, starting there was really foundational in what we did.
Awesome. So we have just a little time left, and I'd love to. I think in this conversation, there's been a lot of talk about collaborative work, about collaboration, whether it's learner and educator, or barista and learner, or young teacher and mentor. And I'm wondering what role collaboration plays in each of your practices, and is it something that you lean on hard at the start, or is it something that's just a river throughout your entire working experience? Nodding.
Yeah, collaboration is the number one thing that we look for in the people we hire. That is the most important thing. It is the top of our rubric, and what we ask for and evaluate every step of the way. And partially that's because our our school space is actually one large open space. And so we are forced to collaborate. But even if we weren't, like, that is just a huge part of the model. And because we have this different way of grouping students, we have autonomy levels, and then we have academic groups. Students are moving between teachers, and so they have to be sharing information with each other all the time about how students are doing. And we actually have two different teacher roles. One is learning guide, whose whole job is really to have those one-on-one conversations with kids and be really great at those relationship building discussions and understanding their hopes for school. And then we have subject experts, and the subject experts are the ones that are leading those small group discussions, but those teachers have to be in conversation with each other so that they know how to support students and build off of each other. And so that's really essential. And then that goes to our students as well. Our students are in these really different groupings throughout the day. Sometimes they're with same age peers, sometimes they're with students who are the same academic ability, sometimes they're with students who are the same ability in these work habits, and they have to get really used to and comfortable working with students of all sorts and understanding each other's relative strengths and weaknesses, and appreciating that. So collaboration is very much central to everything we do, from the adults to the students.
Awesome. Orly, I'd like to get a look at how you do that. I'd like to see that, because we have a similar model here, and we like the way, we kind of like the way we're doing it, but we're constantly tweaking it and trying to figure out different ways and to be more flexible all the time. So I'd love to chat with you about that.
And come for a visit.
Yeah, likewise. We'll cross in the middle.
Absolutely.
So beginnings are endings too, and we want to be sensitive to what's being left behind, whether it's the summer or being barefoot all the time, or a lot of other things probably. But in a new beginning, I think most pivotal is to have something that you're hoping for, something that you're, when I look back, I say, this year I want to do X. I want to stop using the word perfect, for example. And I say it all the time. It's unbelievable how my teacher language, I think it's pretty good, but I use this word perfect. I use it to transition from one event to the next. Perfect, let's go over here. Perfect, let's do this. And for me, it's a big hope that I'll be able to kind of replace that with something that is more meaningful and really says what I intend there. And I'm wondering if anybody else has a hope or a goal in beginning this year.
Yeah, I can start us off.
Thanks, Alin.
I think throughout this pandemic, the community partners, typically called out of school time folks or after school programming, picked up so much of what K-12 was not willing to or able to pick up. And it was revealed that they can be such strong, powerful partners, and really rethinking when, where, and how learning happens. So my hope this year is to keep them engaged in sort of the public education sector in a much more inclusive way. So they're not the thing that happens after school, because they have shown that the wisdom that they hold and the wisdom that's in our community should be the centerpiece of the education, and that the system shouldn't be so siloed away from the community. So I really want to keep them engaged as quote unquote normal returns, that they're not pushed back to the wayside and seen as something that's auxiliary to the system, but an intricate part of the system itself.
Awesome. Yes. Anyone else bold enough to share?
I mean, I can say, I think that the world learned a lot about the role of schools. And I think we've always known about the lack of equity, but I think it became very obvious that not everybody could just poof transfer to go online. And even just buying laptops doesn't solve the problem. And finding ways to feed people still doesn't solve the problem, right? So I think my hope is that this horrible pandemic, and not just the pandemic, everything that was going on, the reckoning on race and climate issues and all of that, has opened up people's eyes to just how critical schools are and how heroic educators are. And out of school, out of time, like Alin's saying, and normal, K-12. I hope that it leads to more respect, but I also hope it leads to much more action in terms of really closing so many of those gaps. That's one of my hopes.
Beautiful. Well, the rest of you are off the hook because it's 7 o'clock. And I'm so grateful for you to take this hour to chat tonight and to talk about beginnings, because I think we get caught up in the doing, and sometimes we really just need to stop and reflect. Why are we doing what we're doing, and how are we really serving the people that we're working with, and how are we creating schools where children and adults can find their best lives. So I appreciate the time, and you're all so incredible. I hope that you'll connect with each other, because it's a terrific group, and I look forward to learning more from all of you. So I'll say, as we always say at the end of a conversation at Slate School, positive rice to all of you. Positive rice. Have a great night, and thank you so much for all that you're doing for kids and for adults and for the whole world. So have a great night.
Thank you.
So long from Slate School.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.